If your truck payment is bigger than your house payment, you might be a redneck. Now, that's not mine. I didn't make that up. I actually got that from Dave Ramsey. I was watching some, I try to see what the competition's up to, so I was checking out his YouTube videos, and that was one of his quotes. He said, if your truck payment is bigger than your house payment, you might be a redneck, and that is awesome. Well done, Dave Ramsey. There's a lot of people around here that are like that. There's a lot of people around here with $1,000 truck payments and up. Yes. And house payments that are less than $1,000. That's a real thing around here. In South Carolina, I would say that 20% of people, their truck payment is bigger than their house payment, for sure. Big truck culture is one of the dumbest things I have ever seen. I don't understand it. I don't understand the motivation for wanting to get a big ass truck. I mean, they are luxury vehicles. They cost $70,000, $80,000. The Ford F-350 costs $100,000. They cost as much as my Corvette. That is bananas that people buy these trucks. And you can't even park these fucking things. You like pull into a parking lot, and I don't know why. Maybe somebody can explain this to me, but these trucks always have to back in. They can't go in head first. So they have to do like this elaborate 19-point turn in order to back into a parking spot. And meanwhile, you're sitting there waiting like a chump. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Big ass trucks. Lots of big ass trucks around here. If I'm going to spend $100,000 on a car, I'm going to buy a Porsche. I'm not going to buy a truck. Why do people do that? They are luxury vehicles. I mean, it's like a Cadillac. It's like anything else. They're luxury vehicles. I do love the Walter the Cat commercials that Chevy Silverado does. The Walter the Cat commercials. Has nobody seen a cat before? It's awesome. But that is the ultimate big ass truck, is a Chevy Silverado. And if you look at the features of the truck, I mean, it's a luxury car. You know, don't get a big ass truck. You can if you have $1 million. But if you have $1 million, my guess is you're not interested in a truck. You probably want to buy a Porsche or a Corvette or something like that. So these cars that you can only afford if you make $1 million are attractive to people who have $20,000. That's the thing. And they kill people's credit because you have these $1,000 plus truck payments. And I look, I don't have any numbers, but I think they probably get repossessed all the time. Maybe not in this economy, but sure. You know, it's poor people, or at least middle class people, that are buying these trucks, and they're going deep into debt to do it. And the funny thing about Ford is, like, they got rid of all their sedans, except for the Ford Mustangs. They got rid of all their sedans. They're just selling trucks and SUVs, because that's what people want. And what are you hauling in the back of this truck? I mean, obviously, if you have a big ass truck, you would think that you were hauling some shit around, but I don't see. You see, it's the commercials, man. Like, the commercials, they drop a bunch of cinder blocks in the bed of the truck. They drop a bunch of lumber. They drop a bunch of dirt. Nobody is putting anything in the back of these trucks. They're for commuting and parking. Oh, man. I mean, nobody's going to scratch up their $80,000 truck with a bunch of cinder blocks. So don't get me started on this, but I already am started on this. You might be a redneck if your truck payment is bigger than your house payment. There are habits of highly effective people, and there are habits that are, what was I going to say? Not highly effective people. You know what I mean? Having a truck payment bigger than your house payment is not a habit of highly effective people. So let's say you already bought one of these big ass trucks. Too late. What do you do with it? You sell it. You get rid of it. You sell it immediately. Immediately sell the thing. Sell the big ass truck and buy something that costs $25,000. You know, used car prices are through the roof these days, and you'll get a lot of money for it. Sell it and pay off the loan. Take down your debt and live a financially free life. Go buy a Ford Focus used or something like that. It's all about your ego. That's what I don't understand. It's like a redneck thing. It's like you're not a man unless you have a big ass truck. You know, all hat and no cattle. Got to drive a monster truck to feel like a man. You know what I suggest? Just go drive a Miata. It's a man's car. I actually know some men that drive Miatas, and they actually love that car. So I know what you're saying. You're like, hey, asswipe, you have a Corvette. And I'm like, yes, I have a Corvette. I will tell you how much it costs. It cost $118,000. And I also paid cash for the Corvette because I have the cash. So if I finance the Corvette, then maybe you could say something. But I didn't. I paid cash. I also think if you're going to buy a $100,000 Corvette or a $100,000 truck, I think you get a lot more value out of the Corvette. I mean, the Corvette is going up in value. It's appreciating because it's scarce, and the truck is depreciating. Ford F-350 is a $100,000 truck, and the whole thing makes me tired. I heard this is kind of tangentially related. I heard a story recently. There was a friend of mine. He was driving through downtown Charlotte, and a kid on a skateboard pulled up next to him. And he looks out the window at the kid on the skateboard, and he looks at his shoes, and he says, "Those are fancy shoes." And the kid's like, "Yeah, they're Versace." And my friend said, "Well, how much do they cost?" And he said, $2,500. And my friend's like, "Do you have a house?" $2,500 sneakers. That, by the way, like, I think there's certain circumstances in which you can justify spending $2,500 in a pair of sneakers, but I would not be riding a skateboard with them. Okay. Stupid people tricks. I mean, I have some expensive shoes. I probably have like 4 pairs of shoes that cost $1,000 at this point, and I do wear them. They get worn, but I have plenty of cash, so it's not an issue. And when you get to be rich, you can buy expensive cars and buy expensive shoes. But the thing is that we're impatient. We don't want to wait until we are rich. We want to buy this stuff now. We want to have these things now. The first expensive watch I bought was a Tag Heuer, which is on the low end of the mechanical watches. And it cost about $5,000. And I want to say I was like 41 or something like that. So I waited until I was 41, maybe 42, to have an expensive watch. And this is after a Wall Street career and all the stuff that I've done. You know, I never bought it up until that point. And I'm building a house, and I'm going to be 48 in a couple of days. And I waited until age 48 to build my own house. Could have done that earlier too and financially stretched myself, but I didn't. I waited until I had the cash. It is all about patience. And also not having a giant ego and thinking that you are worth these things when you really aren't. I was making a lot of money at Lehman relative to my age, relative to how old I was making a lot of money at Lehman, and I was buying a lot of cheap suits, but you've heard that story before. I didn't buy an expensive car until I was 47. The most expensive car I had up until that point was $40,000. Now, they say the average age of a car on the road is 11 years. The average. So the average car was made in 2011. So I was riding in my friend's car the other day, and it was from 2007, and I was like, yeah, this feels pretty old. It feels like an old car. My Toyota is 5 years old, and I'm sick of it and want a new car, which I've talked about a bunch because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. So let's talk about the new car. In November, I got into an accident with a Toyota. I banged it up pretty good, took it to the collision shop, and I got a loaner. The loaner was a BMW X3. And immediately I was like, this car is so much better. It's so much better, And the X3 is the small SUV that BMW makes. The X5 is a slightly bigger one that I would like to get. But the Toyota that I have, it's got 82,000 miles, but from the standpoint of a Toyota, that's really not that much. And I can't really justify trading it in. Or can I? You see, used car prices make this calculus a lot more interesting these days because, I looked it up and I could get about $25,000 for my car, which is pretty good. And if I got a BMW X5 that's fully loaded, it's $80,000. So I just have to come up with $55,000, which is not that bad. And then you're asking, would I finance it? And no, I wouldn't. I'd pay cash. All I got to do is one good trade and I can pay for that car. I just need to have some patience. And keep in mind that when I was doing the radio show, when I was doing the Jared Dillian show, I made fun of BMWs all the time, right? I said they were a status symbol. I said that they were a leasing car. You drive them for 3 years and then they fall apart. I said all these things. I shit on BMWs all the time. And then I finally drove one and I'm like, yeah, I get it, you know? And I asked around and I've heard some pretty good things about BMWs. So my car, the Toyota is fucking terrible. Like, I play music off of iPods. There's Bluetooth, and my iPods won't hook up to the car, so I can't play music in my car. And when I'm on the phone, it drops the calls all the time, and the electronics don't work, and it's all buggy, and it's a mess. I mean, that's really my major complaint. I mean, the Toyotas, they drive just fine. I mean, you can ride them forever, but the electronics are just an absolute disaster. The BMW feels like a real car. It feels like a nice car, you know, and the Toyota feels cheap. Feels like a joke. And I've had Toyotas my whole life. Not anymore. I'm done. This last iteration that I got in 2017, it just sucks. And I think the quality's gone downhill and I'm done. Anyway, that's all I got for that today. Everything's great on my end. Work is good. School is good. The cats are good. Vesper just won Cat of the Month. I keep asking my wife for more cats and she keeps saying no. And you got to remember my cats' names. Okay, this will come in handy someday. My cats' names are Stripe, Tars, Uma, Vesper, Wendy, and Xenia. And Wendy's got a birthday coming up, March 24th. She's got a birthday coming up, so don't forget Wendy's birthday. She's going to be 8 years old, which is not bad for a rescue cat. That's it for the Be Smart podcast. I'm Jared Dillian. See you next time.